Good morning. I'm Jean Salerno, chairing today's panel. On behalf of the Arts Council, I'd like to welcome you all to this panel meeting, the purpose of which is to review the applications in the Arts Project Grant category. Decisions made by this panel will determine the funding for all applications, and they will be reviewed by the Arts Council at its next meeting, which will be June 10th, 2025. I'd like for each of our panelists to introduce yourselves to one another and those listening in, and I'll call upon you one by one. Eric Ashby.
Good morning, everyone. Eric Ashby. I am the Director of Programs with the Indiana Arts Commission. I'm coming to you from Indianapolis, Indiana today. Good to be here.
Thank you and welcome, Eric. Crystal Dunning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Crystal Dunning. I am based in Lincoln, Nebraska, a member of the Nebraska Arts Council, and also working in the private tech sector.
Thank you, Crystal. And another out-of-stater, Roxanne Stanulis.
Good morning. I'm with the Delaware Division of the Arts. I'm the Program Officer for Artist Programs and Services. I'm in Dover, Delaware, which is our state capital.
Welcome, Roxanne. And Jackie Viscott, same to you. Welcome from Alabama.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm calling in from Montgomery, Alabama. I am the Community Arts Program Manager for the Alabama State Council on the Arts, and I am also a theater director, producer, and dramaturg.
Thank you, Jackie. Mike, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point?
Well, thank you, Jeannie, and thank you all out there for joining us today and for sharing your applications and your projects with us. There is a wealth of wonderful entertainment and community activity going on in the state, and we really appreciate the work that you do to help make that happen. I want to thank Jeannie for chairing this and for our staff for helping to make things happen today. Most importantly, I want to thank our panel. Rachel Morgan has put together a wonderful group of folks from all over the country with a lot of experience and background in looking at applications and working in the field. They're going to have some very good comments for you today, and I really hope that you take to heart the things that they say. Everything that they offer is in the hopes of helping you in your applications and your projects. And so we're very glad and happy and lucky to have them. I want to very quickly say a couple things about making sure that you continue to communicate with your elected officials. One of the reasons that we have a very good funding history here in the state of Nebraska is because of the work that you all do to keep your elected officials informed. Invite them to your organization, to your activities, let them know about the work that you do in your community, and thank them for their work to provide public funding for the arts. At the state level, that's very important, and we know that you have been and that you will continue to do so. Even now, more than ever, it's important for you to also communicate with your congressional delegation to let them know the impact of federal funding here in the state of Nebraska. 26% of our budget comes from the federal government, and those dollars are most used outside of Omaha and Lincoln in the smaller communities to help projects like the ones that you are doing today to make them happen. And those dollars are very important, and so it's very important to keep those dollars flowing, not only this year, but in the years to come. If you'd like to know more about the effect of those federal dollars here in the state of Nebraska, please reach out to us, or I'm going to invite you to also get to know the Nebraskans for the Arts. And we'll have a link for that for you, and I encourage you to find out more about them. They are your voice here and in the nation's capital. Finally, a little plug for our agency. We have an opening right now, and I want to let you know that we are looking for a director of administration, our chief financial officer, the person who keeps us out of the newspaper. So if you are interested in learning more about that position or or think that you are a good fit, or you know somebody who's a good fit, please reach out to the staff, or you can visit the state website and look under job openings. That's it. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the day.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks for your enlightening comments and advice. Rachel, would you explain the panel process now to everyone?
Absolutely. So for those listening in, just know that the panelists have read all applications in advance of this panel meeting. Each application has a primary and secondary reviewer. The applications will be discussed and then scored by each panelist according to the published NAC criteria for this category. So the rubric that was attached to the application. The scores will be averaged and the applications will be ranked according to the score highest to lowest. The panel's rank will determine the percentage of the applicant's request that is to be awarded. A mathematical formula is applied based on the available amount of funds. Therefore, the higher ranking applications receive a greater percentage of their requests. In order to, and just know too, you will not hear a lot from the next staff, and that is so we don't influence the review process. We do not engage in the panel discussion except to add clarification about grants or procedures when appropriate. We are more than happy to answer questions before you submit and to help you in that process. Once the application is submitted, we really turn it over to the panelists and it is in their hands. And that is it.
And thank you, Rachel, for those details. I think we can begin now. Rachel will provide us with a brief synopsis of each application, and she will also suggest a brief break from time to time. Okay, we'll proceed with our first application, Albion Area Arts Council. Rachel, your synopsis.
Thank you. This application will help the Albion Area Arts Council pay for the artists and bands who will be performing at the 4th annual Summer Concert Series, which will be held at the venue on 4th Street, July 3rd, 4th, or 3rd, 10th, 17th, 24th, and 31st, which is located in downtown Albion. They estimate 2,000 people from Boone County and northeastern Nebraska will be attending the outdoor music concerts. Any funds awarded will pay the musicians, artists, and bands performing at the Summer Concert Series. Oh, you're muted, Jeannie.
The fingers move. Crystal, you may give us our first review this morning.
Thanks, Jeannie. All right, so just taking a quick look at the overall application. Really high level, really solid application, really great program. Great to see this type of programming coming to Nebraska. Overall, it's great to see that this is a recurring program, something that they are continually building upon. So the 4th annual Summer Concert Series, that's really exciting. Within the artistic quality portion of the application, a few things. Would definitely have loved to see a little bit more clarity around the food aspect, not a major component in terms of the music, but was a little hard to understand the scope of the program. I'm not quite sure if those things are being donated and then given for free to the population, or if those are additional things for purchase at the event. Just a little bit more clarity, I think, would have helped have a better understanding of exactly what the event would look like. Also would have loved to see just a little bit more explanation around those 2,000 people. I think seeing it grow, or having them say that they were excited to see approximately 2,000 people attend last year's concert. Would have loved to see that breakdown a little bit, just to see, is that overall of the concerts? Was that one concert that was really popular? Just to see that just a little bit more would have been really helpful again in understanding what the event itself would look like. I loved the kind of visual descriptions that they did give us, like kind of seeing the glowing strings and lights and whatnot. That was really fun. I thought the artistic examples were relatively strong, so not a ton additionally in the artistic quality section, just would have loved to see a little bit more, just a little bit more explanation. In terms of the project goals, I thought this was great. I loved that they had kind of some specific goals like growing by 10 to 20%, or that's talking specifically about the local sponsorship. So that was great. I again was curious just to see what the plan there might have been to make that happen. And then I did find that the timeline template, and I would be more than happy if any of my fellow panelists had additional thoughts here, but I thought that the like the timeline panelist or the timeline was actually really well thought out. I did have a few questions in terms of it seemed maybe a tad outdated from year to year, just with exactly what was provided, but that could have been something simple like a typo. But overall, thought that that was a really well outlined timeline. No questions really about the budget. It seems like they did a really great job considering those things. Thought the community graphics were really well outlined there. And then in terms of outreach, not really any questions, just more, again, just more curiosity. Would definitely have loved to see in that programming impact section a little bit more rationale behind why they thought the program would have a certain impact on those demographics and how they plan to evaluate that. So that's really high level, my overview.
Thank you, Crystal. Roxanne, your comments.
I have a few sort of things to add to what Crystal said. For artistic quality, I thought that they provided quality arts programming with a mix of local musicians and popular musicians. I did also note that the program administrators do have deep ties to the community. But I think there could have been a little more detail about the artistic selection process for the artists for the series. For planning and evaluation, I wondered if they are doing a survey of attendees as another way to gain feedback. That wasn't clear. The only thing I had about budget, I did have a question about the budget, which was the 5 corporate donors at $1,000. That seemed ambitious because it seemed like a lot of the businesses had already committed to supporting the festival through other things. Crystal, I read that food program as businesses were donating the food, but maybe somebody else had a different read of that. I did think that they were paying their artists well, which was good to see. And then for outreach, I just noted I was surprised by the growth of the young population that they talk about, ages 20 to 35. So I thought that was interesting. And it seemed like they were, through their programming, addressing that community. And you know, they did talk about the need to bring in music that would appeal to their growing Hispanic population. And let's see. I like that the concerts are free and they remove financial barriers. And let's see. And that they identified their underserved community as local youth and veterans. And I just also noted that this organization is in a more rural area, if I understand correctly. So that's also serving in an underserved community. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Roxanne. Jackie, do you have comments?
For the most part, everything that I had was stated, but a couple of other things I wanted to add. While I agree, I would have liked a bit more information on the process of musicians being booked. I did note that they took in community feedback in order to determine the musicians, which I thought was a strength of this project, that they have that community feedback. And then the only other thing, kind of tagging on to what Roxanne said, I also appreciated that they recognized the 20 to 35 audiences, and also that they mentioned serving their more agriculturally focused audiences, I think was how they phrased it. I would have liked more concrete details on their future plans to serve the Latinx population that they mentioned they wanted to serve. Like, how are they intending to do that? What artists or genres of music are they looking into? Who are they partnering with in order to better serve that demographic? And also how they're tracking those demographics and that attendance and that interest in order to best serve the communities that they mentioned they want to serve in the future.
Thank you, Jackie. Last but not least, Eric.
I think most has been covered. Two quick points. One, under the artistic quality, they mentioned that they have a number of the bands booked, and I only saw some work samples related to, I think, the Wildwoods. But I would have loved to have seen links or references or a little bit more information about some of the other bands that they already have booked. It looked like they were super exciting groups, so I would have loved to have seen a link or something to check out what they were up to. And then the only other comment I have was on the goals. I thought I really appreciated, outlining, we want to reach the specific number of attendees. I think overall the goals section could be strengthened by making them a little bit more measurable, so that maybe setting benchmarks, what you're shooting for. That will help guide evaluation in the future, especially as it relates to serving different groups of the community you want to reach with the festival. That's all I have to add. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, moving on. The Capital Jazz Society Incorporated. Rachel.
Jeannie, we'll give them a couple minutes if they want to adjust any scores.
And if you'll give me a thumbs up when you're finished. Okay, now moving on, Rachel, the Capital Jazz Society.
Great, thank you. The Capital Jazz Society is a nonprofit organization that presents a series of high-quality jazz events on Monday evenings throughout the year at the Storm Cellar in Lincoln. These grant funds will help pay the artists who will perform during the Monday evening events in July through December of 2025 at the Storm Cellar in Lincoln.
Thank you. Eric, you're first this time.
Righty. So under artistic quality, I thought there was a clear description of the project, and it's great to see a mixture of experience levels related to this programming, that there was youth as well as more experienced musicians both engaging together. I thought that creates a really wonderful learning environment. I thought it might be interesting for the applicant to consider other venues in the community that might also be good hosts to this, especially if geographical access is a component here. In the artistic merit, I thought there's definitely a clear connection to low barrier access to jazz music in an environment that allows for artistic experimentation and learning. Thought that was wonderful. There's information on the artists involved. I think it could be improved with some additional details as to why the artists they selected to lead the group are important to the community. Like why did they choose these artists in particular? I think that would strengthen the application. The musicians and educators leading the project all seemed qualified, and the selection process for the performers lays out a timeline, but doesn't clearly articulate how the organizers decide who performs each week. And so it might be helpful for future applications to add details such as criteria or forms or some more detailed outline of how people are selected to perform. In the planning and evaluation criteria, I thought the goals were fairly clearly stated and evaluation efforts were solid. One thing that could strengthen the evaluation efforts would be tracking some specific metrics as it relates to new attendees, or since there's such a strong emphasis on the student participation, maybe some feedback around their learning or playing progression could also be really compelling information to talk about the value of this project for future applications. Thought that the timeline was detailed. One thing that I was looking for that I didn't see was who's responsible for what specific tasks. I didn't see the tasks assigned to an individual in there. Budget looked accurate and realistic. I think it would be helpful to see the per musician fee breakdown. I know this is a bigger group sometimes, so it would be helpful to see that. Under outreach and engagement, the applicant identified a target audience. I think some more detailed information about the Lincoln community beyond some of the major economic factors would be helpful for me, particularly as an out-of-state person, to better understand the community you're seeking to serve. And some context as to the other jazz presenters or performing opportunities in Lincoln would also be useful information to help provide context for the community need that this project is fulfilling. In terms of underserved outreach, geographically isolated and older adult attendees are referenced as the underserved population that's targeted in this project. It's great that it's free, and the applicant could also consider more intentional strategies to engage underserved participants through community partnerships with other organizations or different ensembles, and be more specific in identifying the underserved communities present in the Lincoln area. In terms of outreach and accessibility, I thought there were strong partnerships with a number of local musicians and ensembles that bring students into the space, which was great. And I thought the letters of support were strong and demonstrated the value of this project, particularly to emerging jazz musicians, which is a great group to serve and provide a platform. So overall, I thought it was a fairly strong application.
Very good. Thanks. Crystal, you're next.
Yes, I agree with everything that was said. My only additional comment was also about the timeline. I know that they mentioned a bit earlier in the application, or maybe it was just after this, the kind of rotation cycle that it goes on, but definitely would have loved to see maybe it outlined a little bit more here in the timeline. I think it's great that they have these kind of benchmarks, but definitely want to see who's responsible for what, and maybe just understand how these timeframes might change around throughout the year. But that was my only additional comment.
Thank you. Roxanne?
Okay. I thought I would just echo the comments about the artistic quality, the mix of professional artists and students in the programming. I think it's an ambitious weekly program that, shows it's important to the community. And under planning and evaluation, I did have a question about the venue, and I was curious if they were providing any financial support other than just being the venue, because I think they are benefiting from this partnership. And I noted that I think other people covered the timeline. I was curious if they have a formal process for surveys to get feedback. I think they talked about, sort of gathering in an informal way. And then under outreach and engagement, sorry, I need to check my notes. I think the other question I had was about Arts Incorporated and whether that's truly a community partnership, because this organization came up in several applications. But I think they demonstrated the outreach to the schools and the students, which was important. And I thought the letters of support were really great.
Thank you. Jackie, your comments.
I agree with everything everyone already said, the strengths and the questions. There was just one other thing that I wanted to highlight that Eric had referenced with regards to the fee for per artist breakdown. I actually had a bit of concern with the comment in I think it was in the goals section where it said that the artist's willingness to play for little compensation was demonstrated the community interest in the program. And while I understand that artists can find value in being part of a music community, I do think when it comes to engaging funds for these types of programs, well, and not just that, but in general, it is important, and I encourage the applicants to consider how they are participating in the creative economy and how they are valuing artists' labor in relation to fees for service. So I just want to encourage them to be thinking more about that and maybe relying less on the artist's love for the program.
I think that's a great point, Jackie. That phrase, I was like, but I didn't note it. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you, Jackie. Now you're scoring. Yours, we have yours, Crystal? Okay. Next is the City of Valentine Economic Development. Rachel.
You. The 8th annual Chiduza, and I am so sorry if I am mispronouncing that. My apologies to the applicant. Cook-off will be held on September 6th, 2025 in Valentine City Park, and it will feature a free concert, an outdoor cook-off, and an Arts in the Park style vendor booths. Local artists will be invited to showcase their work throughout the day. The grant funds will support the performance of country artist Kate Watson and expand opportunities for additional local performers. The entire event is expected to attract approximately 1,000 attendees. The NAC funds will support transportation for residents without access, including elderly and disabled, and enhance event accessibility. and will also pay for the artist performance during the free concert during the cook-off.
Okay, Roxanne, we'll start with you.
Okay, I was hoping somebody would know how to pronounce it. So under artistic quality, I noted that, you know, the arts programming is one aspect of this event. The barbecue is barbecue competition seems to be the main focus. I do think that the project is important to the community. It's the 8th annual. It draws 1,000 people, which seemed like a good turnout. I liked that they involved the Sand Painters Art Guild. But I did, when I went to look for more information about them, the support materials work samples were not there. I think I got a library page that didn't have anything on it. So that was a little hard to find out about them. And the headlining musician is from out of state, and I think the explanation of country music as being appealing was vague, but I think okay. And I was curious, when I looked at her information, I was just curious some of the accolades about her awards. I was just curious as to what organization they came from. It was just a Texas finalist for, and it wasn't clear who those awards came from. And then my other question was about the Arts in the Park vendor fair. Is it juried or is it open to all? So I think there were just some details missing about that aspect of the event. I do think that the headlining musician is certainly qualified and probably has a lot of popular appeal. And I liked that they were sort of bringing arts to this very sort of popular festival. I thought that was good. Planning and evaluation. I thought the goals were not specifically measurable, except for the competition part, the barbecue part. So I know sometimes it's hard to set goals for these types of events, but they may want to think about some sort of metric for the concert. Regarding the timeline, I didn't see the Sand Painters Art Guild mentioned on the timeline. And I think the sort of cultivation of the artist wasn't very clear. And let's see. I did notice that the executive director was doing most of the work on the timelines. So it seemed pretty ambitious for one person. And I just questioned, again, with the expenses, should there be expenses in the budget for the Sand Painters Art Guild or Art in the Park? I know that, you know, the funds are mainly for the concert, which is fine, but they could have added those to the overall project. Under outreach and engagement, I thought the demographic information was thorough. The concert's free, and I liked that they were providing meals to attendees. And I think the fact that they're providing transportation services to improve accessibility was really great. I do think there were some details that they could have included about the logistics of that. And but it did look like they put those transportation costs in their budget. And I thought the letters of support and the sponsorships speak to the community involvement. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Eric, do you have anything to add?
I think just the two small things. I echo the comments on the goals. I think framing them around the impact of the project versus like, steps, like I'm going to generate a certain amount of going to generate sponsorships, that's more operational. So thinking around what is the impact, when the project's over, what do I want to have seen happen in my community? How do I want this to impact people? Thinking along those lines, I think might be helpful for developing goals in the future. In the budget, I didn't see any staff time expense located. So if you're not paying yourself to do some of this work, I'd maybe recommend building that into the budget if possible. And that would be great. And also how the vendors are selected wasn't a piece of the planning process and wasn't sort of clearly articulated in the timeline. So I would have loved to have seen more detail on how you invite artist vendors to be a piece of this festival. And then the last comment I'll make is I really appreciated all the detailed demographic info and some of the things related to the aging population and population decline. And I thought in providing those statistics, there was an opportunity there to talk about how the festival supports population retention, quality of place, quality of life in the community, as well as how it can foster intergenerational engagement between the older adults in the community and younger community members that might also be all attending this festival. And so I think there's an opportunity there to sort of take those demographic statistics and connect what your festival does to those statistics a little bit more directly. And I think that would have strengthened the narrative in that section. And that's all I have to add.
Thank you, Eric. Crystal, your additions.
I have nothing else to add for this application. But Jeannie, you were muted.
Okay. I think it's time for you to score.
Jackie, did you have anything to add?
I didn't. So yeah, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
With my apology, Jackie. Your thumbs up? And Roxanne, are you? Okay.
Oh, you're muted, Jeannie. There you go.
I forget whether I'm using my mouse or my fingers. My fingers don't know what to do unless I tell them. College Park is next. Rachel.
Okay, thank you. And panelists, just remember this is the one that changed from Grand Island Music Series and it's now under College Park. The Grand Island Music Series is a newer concert series taking place at Stir Museum and College Park in Grand Island. There will be 3 indoor concerts at College Park and 3 outdoor concerts at Stir Museum between July and December of 2025. This grant is to help cover production expenses and artist compensation for 3 indoor concerts and 3 outdoor concerts.
Thank you. Jackie, I'm not missing you this time. You're first.
Thank you, Jeannie. All right, so the Grand Island Music Series. I felt like in the project description there was an eclectic mix of genres, though I'm not. It was unclear how diverse those genres are. They seem to be a little bit more closely aligned. It did seem like a really fun community offering that would be engaging and that highlights Nebraska artists. So I thought that was a strength. And then based on, I think, the supplemental documents, the ticket prices seemed reasonable. So it felt like it would be accessible to people. I did think that the goals listed were a bit vague and could be more specific and more actionable. And I think this is a bit of grantsmanship. So, but I felt that that they were really playing up serving the Latinx population and the Latinx music a little bit more to the way that it read to me was that it was more about sort of buzzwords and less about an actual strategic diversity based on clearly laid out goals. So my advice would be that if this is part of a real strategic plan for outreach, that the goals be much more clearly laid out in that section of the application, and the sort of how and the why and the what in that. I was happy to, I appreciated that they seek and implement evaluations. But I did want some more information on how that feedback is implemented. Like, for example, do they use that specifically for the next season planning? I also had a question about, and this is more of a curiosity about the numbers for the season concerts versus the free outdoor concerts. I wanted a little bit more detailed breakdown in that so I could have a better sense of the the indoor versus the outdoor, particularly because there was a more like limited access for the indoor concerts because of venue size and ticket prices and things like that. And so what are the separate goals and evaluation for those two different types of concerts that they serve? Um, I I did have a question on the budget. It was a little bit confusing to me because the amounts for the artists were not in one section, but they were in another section. And I was a little unclear about that and maybe that relation I think this was one of the ones where maybe the relation to the touring artist program. And so I was unclear about the budget, and I wished for more clarity within what was presented, especially for an outside reviewer. Um, and then I also had a question in the budget about the venue. Is it owned by the organization, or is it free to use? Or because it was listed, but I was just unclear about the costs associated with the venue. Um, And then finally, the demographics provided did help me better understand the communities served. And I did get a sense that there was a real effort being made to engage a range of community members. I thought that a strength was that they have the opportunity to bring in artists to the schools. Um, I did want more information on the community partnerships and the serving underserved narratives. Those felt a little bit just weaker in terms of the information provided, and I wanted more detail and more. I think that kind of goes along with like being clear about what strategies you have and how you're implementing them. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Jackie. Next, Roxanne again.
I think it just took me a little bit of time to get my head around the schedule and the fact that there were like the indoor versus the outdoor concerts, and what was going to be supported by the grant. Like Jackie said, I think, the range of music styles do seem to appeal. Like there's something for everybody, and performers, I noticed on the schedules, were making repeat visits, so it seemed like that they must have been popular and well received. The artist info, the bios were helpful, but I didn't see links to performances or websites to actually see people performing, and planning and evaluation. I think I had the same comment Jackie did about the fees for the indoor concerts. The timeline, it didn't, I don't think this one noted who was responsible for the tasks. And, I think it's great that they have a survey. So a lot of projects didn't. And then under outreach and engagement, just to echo what Jackie said, I think that they have an opportunity to, do a little more outreach into the Hispanic community, maybe by working with the Hispanic organization to get people to come to the concert and concerts. And I didn't see any evidence of outreach to Hispanic media in their promotion, which could really benefit the series and their goals. That's it for me.
Thanks, Roxanne. Crystal, your comments.
Thanks. Not a ton to add. I think just overall, particularly in the planning and evaluation and the outreach and engagement segments, would have loved to see just a bit more detail. I found myself just asking the question of how a bit, quite a bit. So just understanding, kind of with the goals they've outlined, how they intend to bring some of these things to fruition, specifically around outreach and engagement, and then just the overall planning. But that's my only additional comment.
Thanks, Crystal. Eric.
I have nothing else to add. Thanks.
Very good. Your score.
That was all 4.
We have yours, Jackie. Okay.
Oh, you're muted, Jeannie.
Now, the Dream Weaver Foundation. Thanks, Rachel.
Sure. I just want to check in with our panelists. I thought we would do one more and take a break, but I wanted to check how are you doing? Everybody okay? All right. All right. So, Dream Weaver. This grant will fund professional contracted musicians to deliver live musical performances each month at 6 senior communities across Nebraska for an entire year. This will run July 1st of 2025 through June 30th of 2026, and the project will provide 72 live performances, offering seniors approximately 2,160 direct contact hours of engaging, high-quality musical entertainment that fosters joy, social connection, and emotional well-being. The grant funds awarded will be used to compensate contracted professional musicians who will deliver live performances at 6 partner senior communities throughout the year.
Thanks, Rachel. Crystal, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So overall for artistic quality, thought this application did a great job kind of walking through the goals to enrich the lives of the senior citizens. Also loved the kind of overview of the type of music. I think it's a little vague, but I think on purpose, just given the type of performance this is. So liked that they gave us as much of an overview as they kind of could for this type of performance. I really did enjoy just kind of reading through the overall application. In terms of artistic quality, though, I don't have a ton of notes, but definitely would have just loved to see maybe more maybe more in-depth previous samples of what these had looked like in the past. I know that that doesn't necessarily reflect what it's going to look like this time around, but definitely would have just loved to see maybe more like live samples. Or samples of the artist, I should say that rather. Then moving on to planning and evaluation. There was a lot of data in this section, which I thought was great. I think I just found myself seeing the 12 months and getting a little lost in where like the 72 performances and the 2100 direct contact hours kind of fit into it. So would have loved to maybe see that broken out just a little bit more. And then as for the budget as far as the budget's concerned, again, would have just loved to see it broken down a little bit more. The 12 artists at $150 per hour times 72 was great to give us that final number, but still not quite. It's just still pretty vague. So would have just loved to see that broken down a bit more. As for the timeline, I thought the timeline was actually pretty well outlined and established. And then moving on to like the community outreach and impact area, the demographics and the data here just seemed pretty generic. And I think I would have loved to see more about the 6 communities that they were referencing above and maybe how those 6 communities were chosen and what the demographics of those particular communities were. I don't really feel like I have a sense of I feel like I have a sense of the overall state, but not actually of those communities that they're intending to serve. So that would definitely have been something that I would have appreciated seeing a bit more of. And then just gonna keep scrolling a bit here. As far as accessibility is concerned, I don't have a ton of questions, but I don't think I really saw, I guess my only question is kind of what the plan is there. I didn't really see a ton addressing that. But those were my thoughts.
Thanks, Crystal. Your review, Jackie.
I agree with a lot of what Crystal said. A couple of additions. I thought this was a lovely, I wrote niche community engagement project. I just felt like it was very focused and targeted. I appreciated that they mentioned that they bring in skilled musicians who have auditioned and been vetted. However, it was unclear who chooses those musicians and what their background experience was. So I think I had a similar response to Crystal in terms of wanting more about the artists, but I sort of came in from a who chooses like who is the administrator that has this background and skill. However, I did appreciate that the project director was knowledgeable about the audience base. I think particularly in this type of project, that's important to have someone with that knowledge and ability. I really I thought a strength of the application was how they demonstrated the holistic health goals, and also that their evaluations really do evaluate the success of those goals, which they are able to do so because they have activities directors in each of these sites. So I think that is a strength that they are leveraging well. I also agree that the budget was very sparse. And the way I read it was like, maybe they don't need marketing because they're in these specific sites, but what about costs for the surveys? What about other costs associated? Like what else besides bringing in the artists are part of this budget? And if they could be a bit more uh, specific about that. And then I just wanted to also echo what Crystal said about was I think it's a very valuable comment about just some more clarity on how these centers come into the program and what their specific how they're chosen and what their specific demographics are.
Thanks, Jackie. How about you, Eric?
I just want to add one thing, which is commend the applicant on their narrative in the programming impact section. They laid out a lot of great data and information framing some of the challenges related to older adults specifically and how their programming responds to those challenges. So I thought that was a really well done section that articulated the value of the project. That's all I have.
Thanks, Eric. Roxanne.
I echo what other people said about the quality of the program. I did think that they had room to sort of maybe show or have work samples that demonstrate some of the more interactive sections of the program and some of the merriment. Then I also had questions about the budget. I was curious if the partner organizations or where the places where they visit, if they pay fees. I don't know if that was clear in the budget. I had a question about that. And then I did wonder, I think it's wonderful that they're taking surveys and, but it wasn't clear to me whether the people that are attending are actually surveying or is it the staff of these organizations? Because I think it would be important to hear from both groups. And then I think that's it. But overall, I think it's a great project. Oh, there was one other thing, I guess. This topic of creative aging is really popular right now. And I did wonder if the organization could think about doing some training for their musicians, specifically working with older adults, because I think there's a lot of resources out there right now. So I think that's an opportunity for them to sort of deepen that engagement possibly and have some training.
Thanks, Roxanne. Okay, as soon as you have scored, then it's back to you, Rachel.
So what we'll do is we'll take a 5-minute break and come back at 10:05. So just turn the mic camera off, and when you are ready to come back, turn your camera back on. Great. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I think this is everyone, Jeannie.
Okay, very good. The break was long enough for me to learn that our air conditioning is still not fixed. We'll begin with the Front Porch Foundation. I love these names. Rachel?
Thank you. This grant will help pay bands and individual musicians who will perform at Porch Jam 2025, taking place on Sunday, September 28th in the South Salt Creek neighborhood in Lincoln, Nebraska. They will use the grant funds to pay for marketing, city permits, and reservation fees, as well as the artist fees involved.
Thank you. Jackie, we'll begin with you.
Okay, thank you. So I really loved how they're leveraging historic community design, the front porches in a neighborhood anchored by a park, to create a community music event. I appreciate their attention to curating a larger cultural network of artists, representing music more globally. I that intention seemed unclear in the documents from the 2024 event, and so I appreciated how they were moving in that direction for 2025. I would have liked more details on the bands that they did have in place or that they intended to reach out to for more concrete examples. I felt that the leadership team was well qualified to execute this event. In terms of the second section, they had strong community-driven goals, both in terms of the artistic community and the local community. But aside from counting attendees at stages, there were no methods of evaluation listed. So I think they need to think about more comprehensive evaluations as they move forward. To me, the budget seemed in line with the narratives and reasonable, and they had some good local support in terms of income for the event, and support, financial support for the event. The the demographic section was not very clear. I had a hard time fully understanding the current demographics from that narrative. However, they did note some of the historic elements of how that community was had some immigrant population growth. So I did feel that the move to reach out to more international musicians celebrate that history of immigration to that area. Things like income levels and stuff like that lacked a bit more clarity. So I was unclear about the economic demographics of the community. And I think that may have been from, it seemed as if maybe they didn't have as clear of a sense of how to speak about serving underserved populations, though they do bring music to the community, which does make it more accessible rather than like having the community come to them. They bring it to the space and to the community, which is great. But I would encourage them to maybe seek some external guidance on how to speak about how they serve underserved populations. More demographic information about the students would have been really helpful. And they didn't list any additional activities that they're doing at the moment. So I wondered if there were additional activities in that in the front porch jams or outside of the front porch jams. That just sort of raised a question for me about other ways they're engaging the community with this programming.
Thanks, Jackie. Next is Crystal.
Yeah. A few additional points on my end. First, starting with it's in the artistic quality section, the project description, I just really loved how they kind of talked about how after the successful inaugural year, they kind of outlined what the plans for 2025 were, and I thought that that was really, really exciting, including, you know, upping the stages, having the student stage, the food trucks. I just thought it was just a really great kind of breakdown of what they're hoping to do this year. Um, my only other, I mean, overall, I just thought it was a really, really well planned application. Um, in the planning process, the document and the timeline document, my only question was about everything was attributed to the board members, which is great to have, you know, the board being a part of it, but maybe would have loved to see that broken down just a little bit more. And then I agree with Jackie that the budget was in line with what I would kind of expect. Uh, just going down some more here. Overall, I thought it was just a really well outlined application, and I really again enjoyed the kind of mix of things and mix of ways that they are involving the community. Like, for example, like the Little Free Pantry. My only question about the Little Free Pantry is they have a line in here that says our goal is to raise at least $300 in financial support for the Free Little Pantry. And I don't think I really understood through the application how they intend to do that. And that might have just been something that was somewhere in the application that I missed and didn't attribute it to that. But that was the only thing that that I really would have wanted some more clarity on there. But otherwise, again, thought it was a strong application. Um, and those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Crystal. Roxanne, do you have anything to add?
I just wanted to add that I appreciated the background of American folk music and the relationship to the Porch Jam. I thought that was great. I did have one question about the budget, which was about t-shirts. It seemed like, you know, there was a big expense for it, but I wasn't clear if they were selling them or if they're giving them away. Because I think they were like $2,000. And then just I echo what Jackie had said earlier about not enough sort of demographic specifics for their audience. And I do, you know, they do identify the fact that they need to do outreach and get a more worldview, which I thought was great. That's it.
Thanks, Roxanne. Your turn, Eric.
Alrighty, I just have a couple of quick comments under artistic quality. In the selection process, they reference fit for the festival, and I would have really loved a little bit more on what is meant by fit for the festival, like break that down a little bit more so we understand what you're looking for. And that this is also an opportunity where if you want to have a broader sense of folk music from other countries or better connect with the immigrant community that's in the neighborhood, in that fit for the festival section in your artistic selection process, that's a place that you could start to speak to that in more concrete terms. So you might consider that for future applications or programming. And I had one comment on the budget, which was the musician pay. It was unclear to me if that dollar value was per musician or per group. And if it was per group, I'd maybe recommend increasing that number to be more in line with market rates for performing musicians. And other than that, that's all I have to add. Thank you.
And thank you, Eric. Thumbs up. Okay.
Oh, you're muted, Jeannie.
Next is the Hollins Corporation. Rachel.
Actually, it is Grand Island Concert Association.
You knew I would get confused here. I kept saying in my mind, there are two from Grand Island, but that
Right?
had to be College Park. How could there be another one? I guess it was in my mind. Sorry about the confusion. Thank you again, Rachel.
No problem. So this grant is to help pay to bring the Omaha Symphony Orchestra to perform a public holiday concert on Sunday, December 21st at the Grand Island Senior High School Auditorium. Auditorium seats 1,300, and members of the Grand Island Concert Association and the general public are invited to experience holiday season through live orchestral music. The grant award will be used to pay for the Omaha Symphony for music preparation and the performance fee. And the symphony has 55 to 65 artists involved.
Thanks, Rachel. All right, Jackie, you're first here.
Okay. I think I thought I was secondary reviewer
Yeah.
on this one.
I
Yeah.
had myself as primary.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'll go
So
there.
you go ahead, Roxy.
All right. For artistic quality, I said that the Omaha Symphony will provide a professional arts experience. The association does bring in a variety of music styles and quality artists. I did say it would have been nice to see a draft program for this concert. It's for one concert. And it's they talk about traditional cultural favorites and unique versions. So I think it would have been interesting to sort of see what they had in mind to gauge kind of the outreach and the demand. I think having attendance figures from the other Grand Island Concert Association series could have provided insight into the importance for the community. I think that was hard to get at in this section when I was looking at the rubric. Planning and evaluation. I did say that it was good to see so much board involvement, but the admin bio doesn't provide their backgrounds. And they do note that they have a 200-member board. That seems like a lot, and I was just curious about how that operates. So that was a question. And I didn't feel that they had clearly stated project goals in this application. And the evaluation focused on attendance as its primary measure. And I was just curious if they had plans to take a survey of the audience at the concert. And regarding the budget, I said the timeline is not detailed and marketing efforts were not listed. And for a one-time concert, it seems like there should be a lot of marketing for it. And for the budget, $25,000 for a single concert seems like a lot. There are a lot of musicians to pay, and I understand that. I did wonder if, that represents like a discount from the Omaha Symphony. And I did note that they have a lot of other sources of income, which was really positive. And so this grant request is only like a fifth of the budget. So in the scheme of things, that was good. And I think I just had a question about, I noted that they have 1,300 seats, but on the budget it said they were only selling 420 tickets. So just had some questions about this one. Outreach and engagement. I think the community description was helpful. I was curious about the Hispanic and Sudanese populations in maybe like a percentage form. I do think that they are keeping ticket prices really accessible at $12.50, especially for families. Being a holiday concert, I imagine people could bring their families to it. I did think their some of their marketing was really interesting and good with the free tickets and the treat ticket system. I thought was really great. And also checking out the tickets from the library. I thought that was a really great way to reach some underserved or make it more accessible to people. And I just didn't, I guess, feel like the outreach was that needed more detail, maybe. And the community partnerships I thought were listed, focused on fundraising and maybe not community engagement. And they did mention this in the application that in previous years, the groups could do a visit to a school, and they couldn't do it this year because of the timing being so close to holidays. And I really think that is a missed opportunity when you're bringing the symphony there. I understand the timing, but I think it would have made the outreach more deeper and more meaningful. That's it for me, Jeannie.
All right. Crystal?
Actually, Jeannie, there had been a mix-up. I'm actually the secondary reviewer on it, so I haven't given mine yet.
Sorry, I had to step away as you were getting that straightened out.
No, that's all right.
Thank you all for your patience. And thank you, Jack.
So not too much more to add. I had a lot of the same comments that Roxanne already mentioned. There were just one or two things I wanted to mention. In the goals narrative, that read to me more like a timeline of activities than actual goals, measurable goals and intentions for the project. So I would encourage the applicant to really read the question that's being asked and respond accordingly. And then for the evaluation methods to those could have been strengthened, but I think having a clearer goals section and then the evaluation methods being in response to the goals section is sort of what could be tweaked in the future to strengthen the application. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention and add was actually, yeah, two things. The letters of support all seemed like they were from members of their organization. And I think that was a real missed opportunity to show additional community engagement. Find the people who are not already involved and ask them to write letters of support. To show that breadth of community engagement. And then this is sort of underscoring something Roxanne already said, but I think their approach to outreach could be a bit more nuanced and strategic. I wrote that it had breadth, but not depth. And I think that attending to the depth of who you're reaching out to and why you're reaching out to them is a really important part of bringing such a big event to this community. That's all I have to add.
Thanks, Jackie. Eric?
I echo everything that's been said. The only addition I have is under outreach and engagement. Since the school partnerships didn't seem like it would be a possibility, you could consider doing a pre-concert lecture or workshop, something on the day of the performance, either pre or post-concert, to provide some of those supplementary educational opportunities. And I think that could be a real strength to add in here. That's it.
Thank you, Eric.
Crystal, have you gotten to give your comments?
Not yet, and
Thanks.
I don't have a ton. first, I think overall, I would just encourage, there were just a lot of questions that popped up. So for example, I think it was Roxanne that mentioned it about the auditorium size, and how many tickets are being sold. And I would guesstimate that that might be because there are also some season tickets sold prior to all of this. But maybe just outlining that a bit just so that we can better track it, because um I think the fact that this is also part of their season subscription tells us a lot about like how this fits into like the overall their overall programming. So just flagging that as a potential for future applications, a potential to provide some more context. And then I also I agreed with, I think it was Jackie that talked about a portion of it reading more like a timeline. So um, I think there's a lot of information here, and so it's really exciting, but maybe figuring out how to um, outline that information in a way that kind of more aligns with the different categories provided there, just so that we can better follow along and track, because I think the information is all there. We're just searching for it a bit.
My apology to you this time, Crystal. Jackie and Roxanne, are you finished? All right. I think now it's time for the Hollins Corporation. Is that correct, Rachel?
You are
Thank you.
correct. Absolutely. The 13th annual Love of Art and Music Jazz Festival is set for August 30th at Turner Park, featuring nationally acclaimed musicians and talented local bands. The festival is free and open to the public and will have a vendor village full of women, small and minority-owned businesses from the North Omaha community. They expect an attendance of 8,500. And funding from the Nebraska Arts Council will help cover musician costs and ensure the festival remains free and accessible to the public.
Thank you. Eric, we'll start with you.
Alrighty. Under artistic quality, I thought they provided a very clear project description that conveys quality programming. Really appreciated all the different elements involved here, from education to small business, to also just providing a free opportunity to see world-class musicians coming to the community. So I thought that was all really wonderful. They identified why the project matters to the community, and how the selected artists bring value. And I appreciate that it's leveraging this opportunity to bring market access to local businesses. It would be helpful to include some detail on how those businesses are selected and if artists are involved as vendors as well. Just some additional details on the business side, I think, would help round out the full scope of the project. I thought the artists listed are all highly qualified, and sufficient details provided there. Under planning and evaluation, I thought the goals really capture who the festival is seeking to serve and the intended impact of each of the festival's components. And I appreciated how the goals manifested in the project design, and sort of drawing those connections was really helpful. Evaluation seems strong. I think some detail on tracking impact related to the small business participation, related to sales or growth metrics around business growth, I think could be an additional helpful evaluation component to consider for the future. Additionally, some evaluation related to student learning outcomes, since education is a big component, would also be good to include, I think. Budget seemed accurate and realistic. Under outreach and engagement, I thought there's clear reference to metrics on how the festival serves the North Omaha business community and how the festival has responded to challenges in the area. I think the response would benefit from additional detail on community demographics for more context on the community served. The zip codes are great, but I don't live in Nebraska. Those zip codes don't mean anything to me without some context for what's happening in those zip codes, so that I understand why those are important, and why you serving those zip codes speaks to the project goals. In terms of underserved outreach, I thought the applicant identified underserved audiences and provides direct strategies and partnerships for reaching those audiences, and appreciated the intentionality around accessibility for the festival. The education and outreach efforts planned, there's robust marketing. I think some detail on who the LOVEM committee is referenced there, and there's no detail on who's on that committee, how that committee is selected, how that committee functions. I think that would be some helpful detail, and I thought the letters of support were strong. That's all.
Thank you, Eric. Back to you, Crystal.
Yeah, overall echo a lot of what Eric said. Thought this was a really, really strong application. These are just things I would have loved to see a little bit more, just to give some additional context. They talk about the survey, a goal of achieving a 20% sample size, or 1,600 completed surveys. I think I just want to understand that a little bit more. Maybe even if we could like get a sample of the survey. I think I'm just not fully clear on how that is going to help them move forward in the future. And then I thought that overall, their breakdowns about like the community partnerships and all of those things were really, really, really well outlined. I'm trying to scroll back through it to my notes now. I would, in the promotion section, I think I would have been really intrigued to see how they allocated, how they kind of picked these channels, only because it's a significant portion of their budget. And I'm just curious as to like what about these communities made them spend those certain amounts on the various channels. So that's just more of a curiosity that I think would have helped round out the application a little bit, but overall, really strong application.
Thanks, Crystal. Roxanne, your turn.
Right, I think they had the most creative evaluation measure of handing out free water bottles for people to take the survey. So I thought that was fun. But I think it was really, planning evaluation was really solid. The other thing I just wanted to call them out for in a positive way was the sign language interpreters, and that they had a specific plan for people with disabilities. So I thought that was great.
Thank you. Jackie.
I don't think that I have anything additional to add that wasn't already said.
Good.
Oh, you're muted, Jeannie.
Moving right along. Las Manonites. Roxanne, you will start.
And I'll give the brief survey or summary. This grant will help fund the Midwest Youth Mariachi Competition and live band performance at the Viva North Platte Festival on September 13th, 2025 at the D&N Event Center. High school mariachi groups from Colorado and Nebraska will compete for top honors, showcasing their talent and cultural heritage. The festival expects over 2,500 attendees, celebrating Hispanic heritage and tradition, including live music vendors and a coronation of youth royalty. The grant funds will be used to cover the cost of the live musical band and DJ that will headline the festival's evening entertainment and to cover the venue charge.
Thanks, Rachel. Now back to you, Roxanne.
Okay. For artistic quality, I did note that the application had links to the recordings, performances, so you could actually see the musicians, which was helpful. I thought the bios for the musicians was thorough, and it explained their training and listed their accomplishments. Excuse me. I think the application demonstrated that mariachi is important to the community. For planning and evaluation, I noted the planning process is detailed and the key people are qualified. The project goals were detailed and measurable. And the evaluation included attendance numbers, surveys, a debrief, and informal feedback. The only question I had about the application and related to the budget is they do have expenses related to a soccer team that are on the budget, but it's not mentioned in the narrative. And I know I talked to Rachel about this, and it's fine. I think they're just, if they're going to have it in their budget, they should mention it somewhere in the narrative as part of the project. It's totally appropriate to be in the budget, just, some mention of it, I think would have rounded out what was happening. Outreach and engagement. The demographic info gave a clear picture of the Hispanic community. And I did think that they could have talked about age and economic info and demographics to sort of round out the picture. The underserved audience was defined and the project clearly serves them. The outreach I thought was great, and because it included Spanish language, radio, newspapers, and community networks. I thought their list of community partners was good. And I really thought it was great that they were going to have the mariachi band visit the high school and meet the orchestra. So that showed some level of deeper engagement. And the letters of support were from an elected official and a bank representative, and I think showed the community investment in the festival. That's it for me, Jeannie. Oh, Jeannie, you're on mute.
Your review, Eric.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what Roxanne already said. I noted the same thing in the budget regarding the soccer team. I thought under the goals and evaluation, some metrics or goals related to business support, since there are a number of vendors there and there are also artists as well, is another dimension that you could capture as a piece of this project that I thought would be helpful. And then some more specifics around what you want to see happen in the local schools related to the presence of mariachi instruction or ensembles, I think would also be helpful to sort of define more specific targets about what you want to see come out of this project, and certainly making sure that you're inviting local school officials, superintendents, things like that to this, I think will be really helpful to that end as well. So helping to outline some more specific metrics in that space, I think would be great. And other than that, I thought the outreach and engagement was strong. Artistic quality was strong. I don't have additional things to add.
Thanks, Eric. How about you, Jackie?
I echo a lot of what's already been said. A couple of things I just wanted to add was I thought a strength of the program is that they tour to local schools for visibility and education purposes. And then I just had a question on the outreach and engagement too, is that I was curious about the intent and outreach to to the wider community or other groups within the area. And I will say that I think it's okay if this project is intended for specific community groups. But I wanted more information in the application about the intent and the goals for outreach in terms of that. And I think that was yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Okay. Crystal, your turn.
I don't have anything to add.
And Roxanne. All right, thank you. Moving right along. The Lincoln Community Foundation, Rachel.
The Lincoln Community Foundation Garden Performance Series will be held on Wednesdays from May through September of 2025. These free public concerts are held from noon to 1 p.m. in the outdoor pavilion at the Foundation Garden. They are requesting an arts project grant to help support the free weekly concerts in downtown Lincoln for the performances happening between June 2nd and September 17th to fit within that fiscal year defined period. The grant funds will help to pay the artists who perform as part of the series, as well as help with concert production costs.
Thank you. Starting with Jackie this time.
Thank you. All right. So I thought one of the strengths of the project was the intentionality of supporting both local and professional artists, and that they had the structure of a committee to choose the artists each year. I thought that was a strength. The supplemental materials, actually, I thought were the stronger portion of this section. I felt that they were helpful in giving an idea of the event, where the narratives didn't give as much detail on the sound and feel of each concert. So the supplementals were helpful, but I would also encourage the applicants to utilize the narratives to give a sense for an outsider of what the concerts are like, what the look and feel is. The administrator has a strong background in so I didn't finish this note, but I'm pretty sure what I meant is that they have oh, I'm sorry. No, I just didn't read it correctly. They have a strong artistic background, but I'm unclear of their administrative experience from the description, which is what the question is asking. So it raised some questions about that. I also wanted more detail on what specific questions are asked in the audience interactions. They say audience interactions and conversation is part of their evaluation method. Is there like a structure to collecting those responses? Does everybody ask the same questions when they're having those conversations? Or is it just, oh, hey, I had a conversation with these 5 people and I'm just going to tell you what they said. And then so how is that information gathered, strategically collected strategically, and then implemented and considered for future planning? That was unclear to me. I think it's a great informal collecting process, but I needed more information about how it's structured to be useful. I did think that they had a solid understanding, or they communicated a solid understanding of the communities that they serve. And I also think that there was a good sense of this being important for downtown development and creative placemaking, creative placekeeping. Particularly, I loved the idea of downtown employees enjoying concerts on their lunch break, which may be a bit too into the personal because I happen to work downtown in Montgomery, and would love to see something like this happen regularly. But I think as per the application and the project's intention, I think they really do have a good sense of how they can create quality of life through this type of creative placemaking, and that came across in the application. Then the last couple of notes I have is that it seems like they have very widespread marketing, but it was unclear to me in the application how they're being strategic about serving underserved populations in the area, like what partner organizations help them reach new target audiences. All of the listed partnerships are either for sponsors or the organization to help them hire artists. So how are partnerships actually helping you be more intentional about community engagement? And that's all I have.
Thanks, Jackie. Next is Eric.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what Jackie said. I think it's great that they're prioritizing local talent and local in a local space. I think that's wonderful. On the work samples, at least for me, just the landing page of the YouTube is there's so many options to click through. And so to better demonstrate quality, I'd recommend picking a specific video that you think aligns with your narrative and best represents what the concert series is about, so that when reviewers are looking at work samples, there's just better alignment there, because I don't necessarily know what video to click on. And so I just recommend providing something specific in that section for future applications. In the planning and evaluation section, I thought the goals were a little bit challenging to measure. And so more direct and defined goals could be helpful there. In the timeline, there wasn't roles assigned. I kind of worked under the assumption that one person was going to do all of this, but I wasn't entirely sure about that. So I would maybe clarify that for future things. And then in the budget, I didn't see any expenses for a PA system or front of house engineer, things related to that, which may be in kind. Maybe that's not an expense that is really needed as costing money for this project, but I just was noting that. Under outreach and engagement, I echo a lot of what Jackie said. And I thought one thing you could consider specifically in the underserved outreach piece is that selection committee. Who is on that selection committee? Are you inviting new members to that selection committee? Is it the same people who have been on that committee for a long time? Or do you have routine cycles of refreshing that committee to help expand the reach of who's getting access to these performance opportunities? And so I think that might be something to consider in regards to that element. And other than that, that's all that I have to add. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Crystal next.
I agree with what has been said thus far. The only thing I'd like to elaborate on is the outreach portion. I believe it was mentioned about, how they were going to be addressing certain demographics. And I think my question is, because this concert series, they're contracting with Arts Incorporated, it seems like there is maybe a layer, like a degree of separation from their audience. So maybe just I'm curious about how they intend to directly reach out to their individual artists. It seems like a lot of it is falling on who Arts Incorporated has and who Arts Incorporated would be able to contact in their pre-existing contact group, which is great. But I think there's maybe either a missed opportunity to reach out to certain demographics of people, or a missed opportunity to tell us how they're going to be reaching out to the demographics, to the various demographics of people within the community. But that's my only additional comment there.
Thanks, Crystal. And finally, for this one, Roxanne.
Yeah, I wanted to build on something Crystal said. I think they missed an opportunity with their letters of support. They were both from people who were kind of invested in the series. And I think if they had a letter from a daycare or senior group center, that would have, people that attend it would have been really beneficial to the application. I did note that, the series goes back to 1974, so I thought that was, showed a level of demand, and it is nicely supported with other grants.
Okay, thanks, Roxanne. All right. Next is the Lincoln Crossroads Festival. Rachel.
Yeah, and just checking in, my plan was to do one more and then take a break. But how are panelists feeling? Are we good with that? Good. Okay, great. The 2025 Nebraska Crossroads Music Festival unites world-class international and Nebraska-based artists to celebrate cultural diversity through 2 showcase outdoor concerts, family days, poetry slams, interactive talks, workshops, and performances in Lincoln and in Omaha. The 6th season is curated by nationally acclaimed clarinetist composer Keenan Osme, aiming to bring Nebraskan communities together through art. All events are free for attendees. Grant funds will directly support artistic fees and help to recruit, compensate, and retain the diverse roster of world-class performers, composers, and workshop leaders featured in the festival.
Thanks, Rachel. Starting with you this time, Roxanne.
I noted that the project provides high caliber arts programming. The videos, bios, and the 2024 annual report demonstrate the credentials for the participants. The project's in its 6th season and it continues to expand, which to me indicates the importance in the community. And I did note that the 2024 report showed that 34 of the 62 artists were from the Omaha, Lincoln area, which I thought was a nice mix for a festival like this. So they're reaching, including local artists and international artists. For planning and evaluation, I thought the administration team credentials were outstanding, and the planning process identified the key people and the roles in the project. I thought there were measurable goals with specifics of who they're trying to reach and why. I thought the project evaluation was really well done. It included quantitative and qualitative methods. The fact that they received an NEA grant, it shows that I think a high level of planning and evaluation, and is a good thing. The budget is really large, but the request from the Nebraska Arts Council is modest at $7,500. Outreach and engagement. The fact that they do this for free is really impressive. It does remove economic barriers. I liked that they had family-focused events, 15 of them. It's really impressive. The community demographic gave a good explanation of who's living in the area and who's moving there. And I thought they did a good job of identifying their underserved audiences and ways to serve them. Outreach. I think the podcast and the blog are really interesting ways to sort of try to engage an audience year round, sort of leading up to this festival. The partner list was long and included cultural centers, theaters, and museums. And in 2026, they mentioned that they're looking to expand to Kearney. I don't know if I'm saying that right, Kearney. And that I thought the String Alliance in Lincoln camp was really cool. And, you know, they're doing workshops and pre-concert talks. So a lot of meaningful engagement. So I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And Crystal, your comments.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have a ton of additional comments. I do just want to say I thought that the timeline was really really well outlined. And I didn't have a ton of questions about when I was reviewing the timeline, I didn't really have a ton of questions about how or when something was going to happen. I did have a question on the budget, and this might just be because of the note I see here in the application. But there's two versions of the budget, but my main question is around in the other expenses category, there's a lot of lighting, sound, and audio expenses outlined there. And I don't have a clear sense of what those expenses are. And so would just be curious or want to confirm like the differences between the two experience the two or the difference between the different expenses. So like there's lighting, sound, and stage, but then there's also audio and video recording and production and also audio reinforcement. And so just kind of like understanding that breakdown and whether or not any equipment purchases, so not necessarily rentals, but equipment purchases are included in that at all. But that was my only observation there, in addition to what Roxanne outlined.
Thank you, Crystal. Let's follow with Eric.
I thought this was an exemplary application. I have two small comments in the planning and evaluation section. And they're both in goals and evaluation. One is under goal 3 around strengthening organizational capacity and local artist development. The who of that, I would love to see some metrics around local talent on the stage. So like Roxanne mentioned in the annual report, sort of tracking those metrics. I'd love to see the sort of local artist metric show up in that goal. And then the second super minor thing is you reference Placer AI, which is phenomenal software for tracking visitors into certain zip codes and areas. Just a 2 cents for future applications. People may not know already what that software is or what that does. So you might want to say 2 words about what Placer AI is when you reference it in your evaluation materials, just so people understand how that software works and how it contributes to the evaluation. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, last for this one, but not least, Jackie.
I echo everything that was already said. I saw a lot of strengths in this application and in this project, and those have been noted already. I too had my kind of one thing was questions about the budget. I latched onto a few other line items differently than Crystal did, which I find interesting, but like the librarian fee was confusing to me because I didn't understand like how the library played a role. Like I might have missed that, but I was just there was some confusion, and I think it's always important in applications to make sure that narratives and budget really line up. And so in how an organization paints a picture of their project in the narratives, make sure that it's reflected in the budget and vice versa. There's a lot of details in this budget, which is great, but it was hard to sort of parse those out in relation to like what the overall picture of the project was. So just encourage in future applications to have more clarity in the narratives to align with that. But yeah, otherwise that's it.
All right. After you have scored, then it's back to you, Rachel.
Before we go to break, I just wanted to provide a little clarification because I did not catch the two budget comments. I think what happened is that they pulled an old budget from a previous application because tab 2 is supposed to be the final report and it matches a final report that was submitted in a previous year. So I think what they did is they took an old budget form and updated tab 1 and didn't clear out tab 2. So I think that is what happened. So we'll just make sure on our end, when they go to do the final report, that they report the correct numbers. When you are done with adjusting any scores, let's come back at 10 after. So you get a whole 8 minutes this time. But again, just turn your cameras off and when you're ready to come back, turn them back on. Hey, Jeannie, I think we have everyone back.
We are ready. We're ready for the Nebraska Trumpet Ensemble Incorporated. Rachel?
You. The Nebraska Trumpet Ensemble will present one live in-person concert in Lincoln with 5 trumpet players and one live-streamed trumpet recital featuring a major artist from the U.S. in the fall of 2025. The Nebraska Trumpet Ensemble will also present 2 concerts at area retirement facilities. Any grant funds awarded will cover production expenses and artist compensation for the trumpet ensemble for events happening July through December of 2025.
Thank you. Eric, we'll start with you.
Hey, thank you. Under artistic quality, I thought the description was solid. Could use a little bit more detail specifically around what is the repertoire planned for the concert. It's great to see the success of the live stream. I think that was great. They do reference the retirement facilities. It would appear they haven't been selected yet, so some detail as to how they make those selections of what other places they go to would be some helpful detail in this section. The narrative around artistic merit doesn't clearly address why the specific artists that they've selected to participate are important to the community. And so I think drawing that connection, they're clearly local artists and are involved in the community. So I think helping to make some more clear connections there would help to strengthen that narrative a little bit. In the work samples, this is another situation where I wasn't directed to a specific video. And so I think sending reviewers to a specific piece of content that you think best represents your project and your organization is a more impactful way to share work samples with the panel. Thought the artists were all qualified. Some detail on the tentative live stream artists would be useful. I think that would help round it out a little bit, but overall, a strong artistic quality. Planning and evaluation, the goals are pretty broad and don't specify an audience, like who the project serves. I think the goals could be strengthened by making them more forward-looking around what is this project's impact. It's great to see that audience feedback is collected. More information on what is being measured from the audience would be helpful here. The planning, everyone seems qualified on the admin team. Key tasks were outlined, but I didn't see people or collaborations referenced in the timeline anywhere, and that would have been helpful. Thought the budget was reasonable and aligned. I didn't see ticket sales anywhere for the in-person concert, so I wasn't sure if that was free. Maybe I missed that somewhere, but I didn't see that in there. Outreach and engagement. Some demographics and some other descriptive data helped to paint a picture of the community. They didn't really connect the data that they presented with how the organization is responsive to the community based on those metrics. So if you're going to provide metrics on certain changes, it's helpful to have that through line be in here's how we're responding to some of those changes, or here's how those changes have impacted what we do. So consider some of those questions when you're thinking about what metrics you're sharing in regards to the community. I think in the community needs and interests, there isn't a clear community need or interest defined. So it's hard to connect how the project is meeting a specific need or interest. In regards to underserved outreach, I commend the applicant on using churches as an accessible location to reach local audiences. It might be interesting to consider engaging underserved populations more actively in the project design around repertoire or other locations, particularly if the goal is to diversify audiences. Great to see the educational activities with schools, and I thought the letters of support were strong. And it's great to provide access to such a unique ensemble type around the community. I think that's really commendable. That's all I have.
Thanks, Eric. Your remarks, your review, Jackie.
Thank you. I had a lot of almost the exact same comments that Eric had, so I won't repeat anything. I'll attempt to not repeat anything he said. Um, I did have a question in the budget, and this may be something that the staff can answer for me, and so maybe doesn't need to be a note or not. But there were with the venue rentals, there was office space as a line item for a rental fee, and I wasn't sure if that was okay, and it was confusing to me because it didn't seem directly connected to like where the project is located and how it's operating. So I just wanted to confirm that that was okay, or if they were sort of like maybe that that just confused me a little bit. I don't know if anybody wants to answer that now, or if I can keep going. Um, the only other thing, there were only two other things that I wanted to mention in addition to what Eric said was I read their marketing strategies as seeming to only reach those that already know about them. And so while I agree that churches are a great way to access audiences and provide the information. I really wanted more information about how they were going beyond those who already have a sense of them. Because I think I remember that some of the churches that they were utilizing to market were also connected to the project in some way. And I have to go back into the application to specifically say how, but I did read that as sort of like maybe they weren't being as expansive as they could be. And then while I also absolutely agree that I thought it was great that they perform in retirement homes and the schools, so they're reaching the older populations and the much younger populations, I did want more information about how they're growing their like younger adult audiences, because sometimes concerts like these can have those kinds of like the extremes of the age spectrum target audiences, and then the sort of like young adults that will then become their long-term audiences. It's less clear how they were targeting and bringing in those audiences. So those were just the additional comments I had.
Thanks, Jackie. Roxanne.
With what's been said and would echo what Jackie said about kind of the audience and one question that I came to my mind when I was reading that is there a reason that there is this importance of trumpet specifically in Nebraska? Just a curiosity, but something I think they could elaborate on. And under planning and evaluation, I just had a question about the applicant being a musician, the president of the Arts Incorporated, and just wondered if it would be beneficial for someone else to submit the application for this. Just a question for this organization. And again, it similarly in outreach, they talked about working with local arts management business, and I'm curious of how that is a community partnership. I think they could be more specific about that. So we don't have a model like that here in Delaware, so it's something that I was just struck by because it came up a few times, Arts Incorporated.
Thanks, Roxanne. Crystal, your comment.
No additional comments from me.
I will jump in and just answer Jackie's question about the office space rental before you adjust scores in case that makes a difference. It is allowable as long as it is project specific to this project, it is fine. Probably the question is, it would be nice to have a little clarification from the applicant I think that is completely appropriate to ask for that. Because that must be separate from the management fee, which there already is included in the budget. So I think just asking for clarification on that is fine. But if it is something that is project specific, that's okay to include in the budget.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thumbs up? All right. Thank you. Next is the Omaha Fringe Festival. Jackie, back to you. Rachel, back to you.
Thanks, Jeannie. The Omaha Fringe Festival will take place August 7th through the 10th in 2025 at 3 different locations. They estimate 1,200 people from across the Omaha metro area throughout Nebraska and from other states will attend. Over 60 performances from 20 individual artists and performance ensembles from across the US. They plan on using grant funds awarded to pay producing artists and production staff.
Thank you. Now, for sure, Jackie, back to you.
Thank you. I was kind of glad this one snuck in because I did not know about the Fringe Festival and it was nice to read about it. Okay, let's see. I do really appreciate the non-gatekeeping quality of the lottery system for selection. It does make it hard in an application to gauge the artistic quality of the programming because we don't know who will be part of it, and there's no sort of like rubric in which it's chosen or which the artists are chosen. But it did seem to me that from the supplementals that there is an array of events and experiences that are meaningful to the people who participate. So I think that that in of itself is a strength of the event, even though it did make it sort of harder for us to gauge that. The administrative personnel narrative is very strong and they seem very well qualified. Um, the local community investment was unclear from the narratives. I would have liked more information on how local audiences perceive and engage with this project. And then sort of similarly, I did feel like I inferred that the artistic community is that this event is important to the artistic community that is involved, but that was also an inference based on what was provided. So I think I would have liked them to be a bit more explicit about how they define communities they serve and what the engagement is. I thought that the targeted goals for 2025 were strong. However, I felt like the evaluation of those was a weakness or a challenge of the application. It seemed like their evaluation was just tracking numbers and geographical location, and it didn't seem to me that completely served the targeted goals that were listed. The budget did seem in line with the narrative, so I felt fine about that. Moving down to some of the impact, it does seem, as I mentioned before, that there is great artistic impact to those who were involved. I do really feel that the intentional inclusion of college students and the scheduling and the timing, allowing them these summer opportunities in addition to their department shows, was a great strength of this project. I think they're leveraging their local asset well, as in college theater students in particular, but being attentive to the other demands that those students might have. It's nice that they have a collaboration with Kansas City. I thought that that was a great strength. Let's see. Um, it did seem like they had some strategies in place for local engagement, but I really in reading the application desired more details about how they're expanding diversity for applying artists, which is a goal that they mentioned, but they just didn't give a how for for their actions in terms of what they're doing to achieve that goal. The letters of intent in of themselves were strong, but actually created a bit of confusion for me in the application because um, it's a lottery system, and yet the people who were providing the letters of support have been involved multiple years in a row. So what that actually did was it raised a lot of questions for me about the selection process and how it is equitable and how many people are applying and how many people are chosen. If there is this sort of random possibility for artists to attend year after year after year, how is the lottery system engaging in like diversifying the opportunities for a larger group of artists who are attending? And then the only other note I had is I thought that the addition of sensory kits is a great strength in terms of accessibility. I was happy to see that in the application. That's it.
Thanks, Jackie. Roxanne, following up with you.
I agree with a lot of what Jackie said, especially about us wrestling with the artistic quality and how to determine that with a lottery system. I do think that, you know, the fact that it's in its 6th year sort of indicates an importance to the community. You know, the fact that this is a national model, even I thought was interesting in that the festival, they had passes for artistic directors, so they could possibly hire people was good. Let's see. I think I have a lot. I think, like Jackie said, I felt like the application really was good at explaining the outreach and the engagement of artists, but maybe not as much with the audience that comes to these performances. But I think it is a valuable place to launch new projects and get feedback. Having said that, and I did note that they have a series kind of throughout the year to build enthusiasm, and the sort of button campaign I thought was good as well. That's all I have, Jeannie.
Okay. Crystal next.
My only additional thought or comment here was in the budget, and it just it has printing outlined in both the administration and in the marketing budget. And I was just curious how those were different. Especially because in the other project expenses, it has like merchandise, ticketing, things like that. So I'm just curious what the printing is for and why it's twice and separated. But that was my only comment there.
All right, Eric.
My only comment is on the artistic quality in the work samples. One thing that could help in discerning the quality is a video of one of the performances. Like give us some insight into what it would be like to attend this a little bit more, and I think that would help connect the dots. Given that the way the selection process is structured is challenging to judge artistic quality. So I think that could be helpful in that regard. That's it. Thanks, Jeannie.
Sure. All right, time for your scoring. Do I have all hands there? Okay, all hands on deck. Next will be our second to last, Partners for a Livable Omaha. Crystal, we'll start with you.
And I'll jump in with that summary. This grant will help pay the event planning and production staff and performing artists who perform during an outdoor performing arts festival called Pull Up and Vibe to be held on the Omaha Mobile Stage. This event will be held in Omaha on Sunday, August 3rd, and they estimate 1,500 people from the greater Omaha Metro will attend. They plan to use the grant funds to pay the performing artists, production crew, and also event planning and management staff.
Thanks, Rachel. Crystal, now it's your time.
Thank you. Okay, overall, I think this was a really interesting application and project to learn about and to read about. Artistic quality, I think they did a great job with the project description. I think I have a pretty good understanding of what this would look like and what they're hoping to accomplish. The artistic merit section, I thought, is really heavily based on the booker and the booker's experience there, but then also on the DJ. So, that open mic section is a little bit more varied, but I just thought that it's a really cool setup, I think, for that particular project. I thought overall the work samples were good. I really appreciated having the kind of thorough bio, the bios that were provided. That was very, very helpful for me. I think in the planning and evaluation section, I enjoyed having the project goals, and the evaluation section gave me a little bit of a sense, but it didn't quite give me the how. So I would definitely have loved to see just more of the how. So like, if they're going to track like the impact, like how are they going to track the impact? And they say growth in social media followers, but like what does that actually look like? And then like what does it actually look like to track them? I thought that the actual planning process outline was really, really detailed and was really great. I didn't have a lot of questions necessarily about the budget. I think my only thought was on where is it? On the artistic fees there, they kind of have that outlined and broken up. And I think my only question was like about the DJ battle, shuffle, the DJ, the host, all of those things. I just don't think that I understood clearly from the narratives, the roles of all of those individual people, but I think that's just maybe a smaller minute comment there. And then overall, in terms of promotion, I thought it was really well outlined, but I definitely did want to see it maybe a few more examples of how they intend to get this out to the community. I thought the underserved community outreach section was fairly well outlined. And then all of the community partnerships, I thought was really, really cool to see. So overall, I thought this is a strong application. Seems like a really interesting and vibrant project for the community.
Thanks, Crystal. Your follow-up, Jackie.
I agree with much of what Crystal said. A couple of additional details. Um, I I think it's sort of in addition to what Crystal mentioned about the person running this project and the DJ making the selections. I thought yes that they had a strong background and ability to do so, but I actually also really wanted more information about how they do so. Like, what is their criteria? How do they seek pre-book artists? What do they look for when they're booking artists? I just wanted a few more details um, of of how they execute that, in addition to what they did provide about their backgrounds. Um, I think in I think it might have been in that same section. Um, actually there were a couple of sections that this happened is I think that the applicant is a really strong writer. I think that sometimes they fall into a trap of like exciting flowery language and less concrete, like who, what, where, why, when. So I really encourage them. This is a great project. This is a great concept. Know that and give us the concrete details and maybe less of the like flowery language. Uh, Particularly for an arts focused grant where it's highly likely that everyone is already on board with the concept and the importance of the concept. Um, I did think the bios were really strong. I actually, similar to what Eric has said in some of the past applications, I felt like the videos were a little bit harder for me to gauge the feel. I needed some more direction on where to look on the website when I went to the website. Like, what do you want me to look for? What do you want me to see so that I get a real clear understanding of this? Um, yeah, I agree that the goals were specific and actionable, and the budget was in line with the narratives. One thing I just wanted to state, because I really want to highlight this as a strength of the application, is that they had a really clear description of how this event fits into the placekeeping and revitalization going on in this area of town. They know who they serve, and they have found a celebratory way to do that. And I think that that's really strong. And an important focus. Um, yeah, I think that's all I have to add.
Thanks, Jackie. Eric, what would you like to add?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And Roxanne?
I don't think I have anything to add.
All right, thank you. You may score.
Oh, you muted, Jeannie.
Jackie? You're scored, Jackie. Okay. Finally, the River City Mixed Chorus. Rachel.
Okay. This grant will help cover production expenses for the River City Mixed Choruses Winter 2025 concert, Hope for the Holidays, at the Holland Performing Arts Center on December 6th, 2025. They estimate 1,400 people will attend the performance. They plan to use any funds awarded to help pay contracts for the instrumentalists who will provide the live score for the performance and to purchase sheet music for the ensemble.
Thank you. The primary review, Eric.
Thank you. Under artistic quality, thought that there was a pretty clear project description, had the nuts and bolts details in there, and the primary work samples were strong and demonstrated quality. The artists in there are involved and active and important to the community. And I think this section could be strengthened by sharing more about the impact on the participants in the ensemble. Like what is the impact if I am a member of this chorus? And so speaking to some of that impact, I think would be really helpful in rounding out this narrative. All the artists involved are qualified. In the planning and evaluation section, I thought the goals were aligned with the project. It's exciting to see the hiring of an executive director. That's great. Congratulations. I think the goals could be strengthened with some greater specificity on who exactly the organization wants to attract as part of increasing ticket sales. Like who is that increased audience? Additionally, those first two goals listed, while important, are pretty difficult to measure. And so I'd advise you to maybe provide some more specificity there in a way that you could say, yes, we have succeeded, or no, we haven't succeeded in certain things. I think the evaluation is related to the goals, but again, lacks some specificity on how data will be collected related to audience members. It may be helpful to think about more nuanced audience expansion goals and metrics beyond just total tickets or revenue to work towards sustained growth, or potentially identify new audience segments that you could bring into the fold for these concerts. Thought the planning process was clear and complete, and the budget was realistic and reflected the project. Under outreach and engagement, there are some demographics provided. I get a general sense of Omaha and the surrounding counties, and I commend the organization on fostering a welcoming environment, keeping prices affordable, and prioritizing local talent. Under underserved outreach, the accessibility efforts are described. It's great to see the expansion of repertoire and membership. It would be helpful to see some specific metrics around diversifying the singers in the group. You mentioned that, and so what concretely has that growth looked like? Some numbers there would be helpful to substantiate that claim. Outreach and accessibility, I think that strong partnerships and community presence, and I thought the letters of support were strong as well. And that is my evaluation.
Thank you. And the secondary review by Roxanne.
I don't have a lot to add. I agree with what Eric said. I did want to point out that the chorus members have to audition for the artistic director. The other thing I noted was, I think it was in a supplementary material, the length of time for people in the chorus was included, and there were some really long serving members. So I thought that really spoke to their audience and their quality and the importance in the community. I think Eric's covered the other things that I had commented on. I did like that they had an ASL interpreter at the concert as well. So that's it for me, Jeannie.
Amy, I think you're muted.
Oh, you're muted, Jeannie.
I lost my screen completely. It's back. Who knows where it went? But Crystal, I'm glad you're still here. You're next.
I don't have anything to add to this one.
Do you, Jackie?
No, nothing to add.
Okay, are we up for Rachel, a 5-minute break again now that all applications have been discussed?
Yeah, so what we'll do, let's see, we'll let Jeannie, if there's anything you want to say to those listening in. But panelists, what we'll do is this will be kind of the last time for you to revise or change any scores. And what we'll do is we'll take your camera turning off as your indication that you are done. I don't want to, stress you out or push you for time. So take all the time that you need, but that will be our clue that you are done. And once your camera is off, we'll consider scores frozen, and Jennifer will run reports. We will plan to come back at 11:55 and review voting procedures. But Jeannie, I'll hand it back to you.
Yes. All right. And again, thanking all of you who have been live streaming. This brings that portion of the meeting to an end and close to the public. So we will end the live stream now. But before we do, I remind again all applicants that you will be notified in June about the funding decisions for this grant category. So to all of you watching today, thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a nice rest of the day.